What if I told you that your entire existence hinges on just 2 days? Not the day you graduated, not your wedding day, not even the birth of your children, just 2 days. The day you were born and the day you discover why. Mark Twain once said, "There are 2 most important days in your life: the day you are born and the day you find out why." But I want to challenge that notion slightly. I believe there are indeed 2 most important days, but the second one isn't about finding your purpose. It's about the day you die. Because between birth and death lies the most profound question humanity has ever faced. What do we do with the dash between those 2 dates? Let's start at the beginning. You didn't choose to be born. You had no say in the matter whatsoever. You didn't select your parents, your country, your genetic makeup, or the century you'd inhabit. You were thrust into existence without consent, without preparation, without a manual for how to navigate the labyrinth of consciousness you suddenly found yourself trapped within. This is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it means we start from a position of absolute randomness. The cosmic lottery placed you here, now, in this body, with these circumstances. But it's liberating because if you didn't choose your beginning, then you're not responsible for your starting point. You're only responsible for what you do next. Birth is the universe's way of saying, here's your ticket to the greatest show in existence. What you do with that ticket is entirely up to you. Think about it for a moment. Billions of years of cosmic evolution, the precise conditions that allowed Earth to harbor life, the unlikely survival of your ancestors through wars, plagues, famines, and the everyday dangers of existence. All of this had to align perfectly for you to draw your first breath. You are the product of an unbroken chain of survival stretching back 4 billion years. Every single one of your ancestors successfully lived long enough to reproduce. Not one of them failed in that fundamental task. The odds of you existing are so astronomically small that they border on impossible. And yet, here you are, reading these words, thinking these thoughts, existing against all odds. But birth isn't just a biological event. It's the moment consciousness enters the equation. And consciousness, my friend, is both a gift and a burden. Other animals exist, but do they know they exist? Do they contemplate their existence? Do they lie awake at night wondering about the meaning of it all? We do. We are cursed with awareness. We know we're alive, which means we also know we'll die. We're the only species that buries our dead with ceremony, that creates art to outlive us, that builds monuments to defeat the oblivion we know is coming. We're the only animals that experience existential dread. The ancient Greeks understood this paradox. In their mythology, Prometheus gave humans fire, the spark of knowledge and consciousness. But this gift came with a curse. Zeus punished Prometheus by chaining him to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver every day, only for it to regenerate each night. This eternal torture was the price of enlightening humanity. Our consciousness is both the fire that illuminates our world and the eagle that devours us from within. We can see further than any other creature, but we also see our own end approaching. We can imagine infinite possibilities, but we're trapped in finite time. Now let's talk about death, the second most important day. The day your personal universe collapses back into nothingness. The day the lights go out, the final curtain, the end of your story. We spend our entire lives running from this truth. We distract ourselves with careers, relationships, entertainment, ambitions, anything to avoid confronting the fundamental reality. This all ends. You end. Everyone you love ends. Everything you've built will crumble. Your name will be forgotten. The universe will continue as if you never existed. Depressing? Perhaps, but also clarifying. Because death is what gives life its urgency, its meaning, its weight. If you had infinite time, would anything matter? Would you ever make a decision? Would you ever take a risk? Probably not. You'd procrastinate forever. Death is the deadline, literally. It's the final exam you can't reschedule. And knowing it's coming, knowing that your time is finite, that's what forces you to ask the most important question you'll ever ask. What will I do with the time I have? The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, kept a skull on his desk, not out of morbidity, but as a reminder, memento mori, remember you will die. This wasn't meant to depress him, but to focus him. Every decision became clearer when filtered through the lens of mortality. Seneca wrote that we're not given a short life, we make it short by wasting so much of it. We act as if we're immortal, putting off what matters, indulging in trivialities, living as if there will always be more time. But there won't be. The clock is ticking. It's always ticking. So we have these two bookends, birth and death. But what about everything in between? That's where the real story unfolds. That's where you have agency. That's where you get to decide what kind of story you're telling. Between birth and death, you have approximately 30,000 days, if you're lucky. Maybe more, maybe far fewer. Nobody knows their number. But let's say 30,000. That sounds like a lot, until you realize you've probably already spent several thousand of them. Maybe 10,000. Maybe 20,000. The hourglass is emptier than you think. What are you doing with those days? Are you living deliberately, or are you sleepwalking through your own existence? Are you making conscious choices, or are you following a script someone else wrote for you? Are you building a life that reflects your values, or are you chasing someone else's definition of success? Most people never ask these questions. They're born, they follow the expected path of school, work, family, retirement, death, and they never pause to wonder if this is what they actually wanted. They never rebel against the default settings. They accept the life that was handed to them rather than creating the life they desire. But you don't have to live that way. You can wake up. You can question everything. You can dismantle the assumptions you've been operating under and rebuild from scratch. You can choose differently. This is where philosophy becomes practical.
Kierkegaard talked about the anxiety of freedom. When you realize you're free, truly free, it's terrifying. Because if you're free to choose, then you're responsible for your choices. You can't blame your parents, your circumstances, your bad luck. You're the author of your story, and that's a heavy responsibility. Most people can't handle this responsibility, so they hide from it. They let others make their decisions. They follow the crowd. They pursue goals they don't actually care about because everyone else is pursuing them. They work jobs they hate, for money they don't need, to buy things they don't want, to impress people they don't like. They live in what Thoreau called quiet desperation.
But you don't have to. You can choose authenticity. You can decide to live in alignment with your deepest values, even if that means disappointing others, even if that means taking risks, even if that means failing spectacularly. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. You're going to die anyway. You're going to die whether you play it safe or take the leap. You're going to die whether you pursue your dreams or settle for mediocrity. So why not go for it? Why not at least try to build a life worth remembering? This brings us to legacy. What will you leave behind? I'm not talking about money or property or achievements, though those matter to some people. I'm talking about the ripples you create in the pond of existence, the lives you touch, the ideas you spread, the love you give, the kindness you show. You probably won't be remembered 100 years from now. That's just reality. Even most famous people fade into obscurity eventually. But that doesn't mean your life doesn't matter. Because you affect the people around you, and they affect others, and those ripples continue long after you're gone. Every kind word, every generous act, every moment of genuine connection, these things echo forward. You'll never know the full impact of your existence. That stranger you smiled at might have been contemplating suicide. That young person you mentored might go on to change the world. That simple act of forgiveness might break a cycle of hatred that's persisted for generations. Your legacy isn't what you leave for people, it's what you leave in people. It's the changed hearts, the opened minds, the lifted spirits. It's the courage you inspired, the hope you kindled, the love you demonstrated. We live in an age of unprecedented material comfort and unprecedented spiritual poverty. We have more stuff than any generation in history, but we're more depressed, more anxious, more medicated. Why? Because we've lost meaning. We've lost the stories that used to tell us who we are and why we're here. Religion used to provide these answers. You were born to serve God. You lived according to divine commandments. You died and went to heaven or hell. Simple, clear, comforting for many. But in the modern world, those old stories don't work for everyone anymore. Science has explained away the mysteries. Technology has replaced ritual. Individualism has eroded community. We're left in a meaning vacuum, and we're filling it with consumerism, entertainment, and addiction. But meaning isn't something you find out there. It's something you create in here, in the choices you make, in the values you embody, in the life you build. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote that man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in life. Not pleasure, not power, but meaning. And meaning comes from struggle. It comes from overcoming obstacles.
It comes from contributing to something larger than yourself. It comes from the sweat and tears and blood you pour into creating something valuable. The Buddhists have a practice called maranosati, mindfulness of death. They meditate on their own mortality, not to become morbid, but to become present, to appreciate the preciousness of this moment, to let go of petty concerns, to focus on what truly matters. What if you lived every day as if it were your last, not in a reckless, hedonistic way, but in an intentional, values-driven way? What would you do differently? Who would you call? What would you say? What would you let go of? What would you hold on to? You'd probably stop sweating the small stuff. That argument with your spouse about the dishes wouldn't matter so much. That embarrassing thing you said 3 years ago that you still replay in your mind would lose its power. That Instagram post that didn't get enough likes would reveal itself as the meaningless vanity it is. You'd probably focus on connection, on telling the people you love that you love them, on healing old wounds, on being present rather than distracted, on listening rather than waiting to speak. You'd probably take more risks. Ask for that promotion. Start that business. Write that book. Tell that person how you feel. Travel to that place you've always dreamed of. Because what's the worst that could happen? Rejection? Failure? Embarrassment? You're going to die anyway. You might as well die having tried. Here's the paradox. Death is what makes life precious. Scarcity creates value. If roses bloomed year-round and never wilted, would we treasure them the same way? If sunsets happened every hour, would we stop to watch them? If we had infinite time, would we cherish each moment? No. We value things because they're fleeting. The cherry blossoms are beautiful because they last only a week. The sunset is stunning because it happens only once each day. And life is sacred because it ends. So, death isn't the enemy. Death is the teacher. Death is the wake-up call. Death is what snaps us out of our complacency and forces us to pay attention. Death is what transforms existence from a casual stroll into an urgent sprint. Death is what makes today matter. So here we are, suspended between two cosmic events, the day we arrived and the day we'll depart. What will we do with this suspended animation we call life? I can't answer that for you. Nobody can. This is your question to answer, your life to live, your story to write. But I can tell you this, you must choose consciously. You must wake up. You must take responsibility for the one wild and precious life you've been given. Don't let it slip through your fingers while you're scrolling, binging, working at a job you hate, maintaining relationships that drain you, pursuing goals that don't fulfill you. Don't reach your deathbed with a list of regrets as long as your arm. The time is now, not tomorrow, not next year, not when you have more money, more time, more confidence. Now. This moment is all you have. This breath, this heartbeat, this opportunity to choose differently. The day you were born, you became a possibility, a potential, a blank canvas. The day you die, that canvas will be complete. The question is, what will the painting show? Will it show a life fully lived? A person who loved deeply, risked boldly, gave generously, and showed up authentically? Or will it show a faded sketch of what could have been? A person who played it safe, held back, waited for permission that never came.
Your birth was given to you. Your death will be taken from you. But everything in between, that's yours to shape. That's yours to mold. That's yours to create. So create something beautiful. Create something meaningful. Create something that matters, if only to you. Because in the end, that's all any of us can do. We take the raw materials of our birth and the finite time before our death, and we build something, a life, a legacy, a contribution to the human story. Make it count. Make it matter. Make it yours. Because these are the two most important days in your life, the day you were born and the day you die. And everything you are, everything you do, everything you become exists in that sacred space between them. The clock is ticking. What will you do with your time?